Okay, this question is asking you to compare 2/7 and 0.31. They're telling you that 2/7 were fiction books that were sold, and 0.31 or 3100ths were nonfiction. And they're asking you which type of book sold more last week. So fiction, we'll say, is F. They sold 2/7, and nonfiction is 0.31. So you're being asked to compare. So I would change the 2/7 to a decimal just to see which number is larger and smaller. So to do this, our rider goes in the house, 7 goes on the outside. Drop a decimal, add a 0, bring the decimal up. And I know that 7 can go into 20 2 times. 7 times 2 is 14. And 20 minus 14 is 6. 7 can't go into 6, so I'll add a 0, bring it down. And I know that 7 can go into 68 times because 7 times 8 is 56. And I could keep going with this, but I actually can stop here because I know that 2/7 is just about equal to 0.28. And it doesn't have to be exact because we're just trying to compare two things. So 0.31 is greater than 0.28, so that means that more nonfiction books were sold. And you would need to write that because they asked you to be specific in your answer. Okay. For number 14, it says Dexter's lawn is 2/3 of an acre. If 17.5 bags of fertilizer are needed for 1 acre, how much will he need to fertilize his lawn? Write your answer as a mixed number. So the key here is the word of. They tell you that Dexter's lawn is 2/3 of or times an acre. Of means times. So the way that we're going to figure this out is we're going to multiply 2/3. We're going to figure out what 2/3 of 17.5 equals. So of means multiply, so we're going to have 2/3 times 35 over 2. 17.5 is 35 over 2 as a mixed number. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So I end up with 35 over 3. Now at this point, this is an improper fraction, so we need to change this into a mixed number. So my 35 goes in the house, 3 goes outside. 3 times 1 is 3. Okay, 3 times 1 is 5, or 3 times 1 is 3, and then when I subtract 3 from 5, my remainder is 2. So my answer is 11 2/3, and you need to include your units, and the units would be bags of fertilizer. That's how much he would need. So that's our answer. Okay, moving on to 15, the average person living in Argentina consumes about 145 pounds of beef per year. That's a lot. The average person living in the U.S. consumes 3/5 as much beef. How many pounds of beef does the average American consume every year? Okay, so the way that we would set this up is we're going to think about what number is 3/5 of 145 pounds. We know that Americans consume 3/5 of the amount that Argentinians consume. Excuse me, and they consume 145 pounds. So if we can find 3/5 of 145, then we'll have the number or the amount of pounds that Americans consume of beef each year. So we need to think that of means times, that's our key word here. So we'll set this up as multiplication. Okay. Now, at this point, we are multiplying, and remember that it's really a smart idea to simplify before you multiply. And I know I can divide 145 by 5. So 5 divided by 5 is 1, and 145 divided by 5 is 29. Once I've got that, I'm just going to multiply the top. I know that 29 times 3 is 87, and 1 times 1 is 1. And so 87 pounds, we need to include our units, of beef is the amount that Americans consume each year. And that makes sense. 85 pounds would be about 3/5 of 145 pounds. All right, moving on to number 16, it says find each quotient. So we're dividing. Now remember that when we divide, we keep our first fraction, change to multiplication, and flip our second fraction. Okay? It's important to note that we're not changing the sign, we're just finding the multiplicative inverse, or we're flipping our second fraction. After I've set it up, I can simplify. I know that 4 and 8 I can divide by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1, 8 divided by 4 is 2. Now I multiply across top. Negative times positive is negative. 1 times 9 is 9, and 5 times 2 is 10. So that's my answer. For number 17, again, I'm dividing, so I need to think about keep, change, flip, and I'm not changing the sign of any number here. I'm just going to take the multiplicative inverse of my second fraction, or flip it. So I've got m over 6n times 3n over 7m. Now I can simplify. So anything divided by itself is 1, so m over m on the top, m on the bottom, cancels out to 1. N on the top, n on the bottom, cancels out to 1. And then I can look at my regular numbers. I know that I can simplify and divide 3 and also 6 by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 6 divided by 3 is 2. Okay, so now at this point on the top, I just have 1 times 1, which is 1. And on the bottom, I just have 2 times 7, which is 14. That's my answer. For 18, it says evaluate if m equals 2 and 2/5, n equals negative 3/10, and p equals 6. So first thing I'm going to do is realize that this is m times n divided by p. So I'm going to set this up as 2 and 2/5 times negative 3/10. That's what we do first. And then we're going to divide that answer by p, which equals 6. All right, so now I'm going to do my parentheses first. I know that 2 and 2/5 is the same as 12 over 5, and I'm multiplying that by negative 3 over 10. Now I can simplify. 12 and 10 I can divide by 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5. 12 divided by 2 is 6. Now when I multiply across the top, I have 6 times negative 3, which is negative 18, and 5 times 5, which is 25. Now I'm dividing all of that by 6, because remember we still have that 6. So when you're dividing, you're going to keep, change, flip. So I'm going to keep negative 18 over 25, change division to multiplication, and flip 6 over 1 to 1 over 6. We can simplify. 18 divided by 6 is 3, and 6 divided by 6 is 1. So my answer is negative 3 over 25. When I multiply 3 times 1, I get 3, and 25 times 1, I get 25. And don't forget the negative. All right, for this last one, we are going to do KCF to start because we have subtraction. So I would have 2 and 12 over 13, keep, change the minus to plus, and flip the negative 7 and 10/13 to positive 7 and 10/13. Now I'm going to add 2 plus 7, which is 9, and 12 plus 10, which is 22 over 13. At this point, I'm going to change 22 over 13 and make that a mixed number. Okay, and then I've got 1 and 1 and 9/13 as my mixed number. And I need to add that mixed number to my original whole number. So my answer is 10 and 9/13.